All right, I think we're live. It is February 19th. Well said show. We are in 2025. We're in the new year. Myself, Mario Iniguez, if you can't roll your R. I am broadcasting live my portion of this podcast out of Austin, Texas, where it is cold, 23 degrees, says my computer. With me, my colleague on the wealth side, Jesus de Garzon. Jesus, how are we doing today?
Hey Mario, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you everybody for being here. I'm more than excited to be here with you and be a co-host with Mario. I am actually from Atlanta, Georgia today. We are about like 41 degrees. So it's a little bit cold, but it's not that bad. So yeah, it's really nice today.
Oh, totally. Yeah, my daughter's track meet got canceled, so they didn't want kids in middle school running in sub-zero temperatures. And actually, want to know how you're doing, how you're keeping warm if it happens to be cold where you are. And if you're on a white sandy beach and you're listening to us, kudos to you. But we're going to pose a couple questions throughout the chat. And also, we have a lot of jam-packed agenda for you. First question, though, how best do you keep warm in the winter? So you're going to see that's a couple of options has come up as far as how best maybe you can keep warm. I love all of these. I'm seeing them right now. We're all seeing these in real time. I love the hot beverage. I'm a tea guy myself. You can see that. Maybe it's kind of hard with the backdrop. I got the heated pad here. Sometimes in the office here in Austin, it gets a little bit chilly, even though my sentimental Iowa roots, I'm used to the snow. Sometimes getting a workout in the gym. And then, yeah, snuggling up with a pet or a loved one. Hey, Sus, well, how do you best keep warm in the winter?
Definitely, I am an A and D, like together at the same time.
Yeah, totally. And if the stock market's sizzling, that also kind of gives you like feels good as well.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. Well, hey, first thing we want to talk about is we get a lot of questions. Obviously, my own wealth book of clients. Jesus and I have the pleasure of going out and talking to a lot of NFP clients and doing individual consults. But there's been a lot of questions about the political climate and what to do, what not to do, things to look for. So we thought we would jump out into it. Before we do, Sarah snuggles with her dog. I love that. So we love that. Thank you, Sarah, for participating. Looks like Natalie or Nathalie says B. I love that. I love that. Mary says D. She likes snuggling up with a pet or a loved one. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, we're already into February. It's almost March. So Lynn says A and B. Thank you, Lynn.
Great.
Wonderful. All right. Yeah. I like the combo. Sometimes it takes a combo to stay warm.
Oh, yes.
We should have put another one or all of the above, right?
All of the above.
Um, but yeah, so some takeaways here because I know it's been on a lot of people's minds as far as like, hey, what should I be doing? What should I be thinking about? Is first let's talk about an abstract. The Fed has signaled there might be about 1 to 2 interest rate cuts this year. So if you're looking for a lot of help on maybe buying a home or buying a car, relief isn't really coming that quick because at most there might be a quarter rate interest rate cut each time. We were a little behind other countries like even the European Central Bank, and we finally did a couple cuts last year. But those low interest rates or zero interest rates we experienced for over a decade where people are locking in homes at 3% or getting a nice sweet car note at 0% through the credit union, we may not see those for a while. But we always hear on the NFP retirement team, the Wealth Send Show team, we want you to come into a strong position when it comes to making sure that you're bowstring. So what you can take control over is actually what's most beneficial. The other thing too is there's probably some silver linings. Whoever gets into office, there's some silver linings. So for example, deregulation tends to be one of the initiatives of this current White House. Who does that benefit the most? And ironically, small and mid-cap companies, if there is less bureaucratic tape in their way, they can grow a lot faster at a faster clip. And what does that mean for you as the individual investor? Well, that means if you have any small or mid-cap exposure, Russell 2000, for example, inside your portfolio, you're going to stand to gain. And especially with this type of, the both sets of Congress. So you have the House of Representatives, you have the Senate, you have the White House, all controlled by one party. There's going to be, in the next 6 to 9 months, you're going to see as probably a fast implementation of agenda where the minority control party doesn't have a lot to be able to to stymie them. But in any event, regardless whoever's in office, it's our interest, it's our mantra to help you to win and to empower yourselves. So you're making money whoever's in control. And there, right, Jesus, we want people to win whoever has control of the political party, right?
Yes, and actually, when I do have my education meetings, and this is like a very, very, very recurring question, like, hey, should I make some movements on my investment? So I started like planning for in what I always tell is like, do not take any rush decision. It's like, as you said, there are certain things that are in our control. There are other things that is definitely out of our control. So do not take any rush decision. I would say,
Yeah,
with all the environment that we are living as of right now, let's just see how the things are going. As you said, the next 3 6 months are going to be very decisive. So let's just
totally.
see how things going. And definitely, if you are in doubt, approach to your financial advisor if you do have one. If you do have some, I would say, benefits from your retirement plan, approach to your financial advisor so you can get a better advice, and do not, once again, do not take any rush decisions. I guess that's my key point. Do not take any rush decision.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you already have a good financial plan and you already like your investments, now is not the time to derail it and throw it out the window, right? And so having a little bit of caution, weathering the storm, trying to find silver linings. And I love what you said, Jesus, because whatever you can control, really flex that muscle. So, for example, we're going to talk into budgeting here in just a moment. I'm giving you a little bit of foreshadowing, but also give you another example within our household, how we were thinking, like we go through eggs quite a bit in the Inigas household. So I have a soon to be 3, a soon to be 5-year old, and I have a 13-year old, and we go through quite a bit of eggs every 2 weeks. And I was started reading like, why have eggs jumped up in price so much? And it's in part because some of the hens haven't had, well, the farms, there's been like disease and flu, and so the hen count is down. So that got me thinking like, well, how long does it take for a hen to become a hen before they can start producing eggs? It takes a couple months.
Yeah.
So it's going to take its time to unwind before maybe we see some of the relief on the inflation front. But that's definitely something we see in our pocketbook too. And I think we buy 18 eggs or something, 36 eggs every 2 weeks, something like that. Which I don't know, maybe there's some families out there that are buying more. For some reason, it takes up a lot of space in our fridge. Uh, but the other thing too is obviously with tariffs. The tariff thing, maybe from the first administration when he was in the White House, it's possible that it might just be a wash. But there's also might be a chance. There might be some, well, not a chance, but there also might be some possible impact as far as some consumer goods.
Yeah.
Like it could be electronics, it could be everyday goods, where we see that there could be some spike in prices, but we really don't know yet. We really don't know yet. We're only just not even like a month in, right? So just keep that in mind. But let's move to 2025 financial goals, and let's make sure you guys are avoiding financial pitfalls. So let's really talk about this. So what do you think somebody should be on somebody's to-do list for setting financial goals, Jesus? What do you think should be the couple things you should keep in mind?
Well, I would like to start with always is a good idea to have an emergency fund. That's I would say that that's the first step, because you don't want to fall into or to add more debt if anything can happen. And when I say anything, it can go like anything. It can go through like replace your cell phone to, God
Yeah,
forbid, something like a medical bill, right? So it
sure.
can go the whole spectrum. So definitely, I would say, as I said during my meetings, the very first step is having an emergency net. Once you have that, then definitely start thinking for the future, either short term, mid term, long term. Speaking like, I don't know, all the way through retirement if you want to, right?
Yeah.
But definitely, we need to have a solid, for a firm base today. Then we can start planning for the future. Definitely.
Absolutely. Murphy's Law. It's just a matter of when, not if, Murphy will come a knocking, where there's going to be a financial curveball that might hit your house, flat tire, child gets sick. Now, your tween comes home from middle school and breaks the screen on their phone, and now they can't text or call you. Stuff will undoubtedly happen. And I know last year, about this time, I was recovering from pneumonia. I had never had pneumonia before. It took me 42 years to get it. and I don't wish that on anybody. And I was all set. Just a few more. I'll give you one more detail of what was going on in my life that time. I was training for a half marathon, the Austin half marathon, and I got pneumonia 6 days out from the start line, and I wasn't able, obviously, to run that. And I just signed up to be able to do it for next year. I wasn't able to do it this year because of like scheduling and whatnot. But yes, curveballs will happen in your life. Try to, and really to Jesus's point, look at your financial house. What can we do to be better? If you want to be like every other American, don't do any forecasting. Don't do any in-house cleaning. Don't look at your debt, right? But if you truly want to be extraordinary, we got to do something different. So that really ties into, I would say, I would say we can move right into financial pitfalls, because almost sometimes the financial pitfalls, to avoid them, is the goal of 2025. Try not to take on more debt, right? That's really important. How did we get this debt? How did we get this debt? I was talking to one client the other night, and we were saying about, okay, how did we get this debt? Was it medical debt or student loans? And ultimately, we had to devise a plan. We had to create a plan to eliminate some of this debt over 3 months, 9 months, 12 months, so it can bring more income. Because that payment each month, if we're not only just making the minimum, it's really going to hurt you in the long term, because the interest will build up.
Yeah.
You're not paying the principal down. And so, there's a lot of good websites too out there. If you're trying to looking for like a 0% interest card, or you're trying to find like a decent, like everything from mortgage rates, auto rates, just make sure whatever you're getting. Maybe now's not the time to refi. Maybe you just bought a home last year. Maybe you got to wait a few years, right? Maybe interest rate will come down a little bit. And the money you have to bring to the table, then it'll make more sense to refi. But maybe just patience too can be a good financial goal. Saving up for the vacation, making a bigger down payment on the next auto, your next vehicle you're going to buy. Any financial pitfalls you see that sometimes people kind of step in that you wish they wouldn't do?
I can tell you the most common pitfall that I see is not having a budget, not knowing where the money is going.
Yeah.
I had this client, this participant that I was on an education session, and she was asking me like, "Hey, how can I save more money?" And after we going through all the debt and the income, all of it, I told her like, okay, there are only two ways. Like either you make more money or you spend less. And the only way
That's
for
true.
you to spend less is to know where is it going, where your money is going. And
Sure.
having that budget, it will show you so you can see where the money is going, all your expenses. And I've seen, and it's pretty, and I know when we talk about budget, it's always like, oh, it's so much time consuming. Or we may be afraid to face like where the money is going, because sometimes we are just afraid, like, I don't want to see this.
True.
I always use this joke, like, if you want to know how much you are spending on Amazon or Starbucks, you may not like it, but you better know how much you are spending on those I would say small expenses that sometimes we don't think about it, but when you add up, it really adds throughout the year.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. A lot of the conversations that I have being a wealth manager is exactly what you're talking about. Like, hey, what do we have the most control over? And just being intentional with our money, telling our dollars where to go. Also making your money tangible too. So it's too easy in 2025 to spend money that we either have and or don't have. And just going back to maybe even paying in cash, being informed and armed consumer, knowing that it's so easy to make transactions on your phone, or when you go to the grocery market, or going to big box stores. There's a reason why they put the milk and the eggs at the back of the store, right? Because there's some type of promotion or discount
Yep.
they want you to walk through before getting to your milk and eggs. And so I one of the things I like to do is putting more tangibility in somebody's budget. So that could, for example, I have my 13-year-old, she has her first debit card, which is scary. And so what I do is I have her use the checkbook ledger. When she makes a deposit, she makes an entry. When she makes a withdrawal, she makes an entry. The date, what it was for. And she came to me the other day and she's like, I think I lost $200. I'm like, what? You lost $200? She goes, there's something in my ledger that does not add up. I go, well, either it was a withdrawal you forgot to write in, or a deposit, or maybe you took a withdrawal from the ATM. Something was there where you don't have the right data. So getting the right data about yourself is incredibly important. I was working with one client, and this kind of ties into 2025 goals for everybody wants to have more control over their own finances, right? And so what we did was we created more visibility with the budget. So we created a budget and we had her put it on her refrigerator, and she also put one on her vanity mirror in her bathroom. So that way she's seeing it.
Every single day. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, oh, this is what my bill is due, or this is how much I got to make on this, or this is the goal. Because once you kind of leave and you start going, it's really easy to kind of the train gets off the track, so to speak. So, but yeah, be intentional, be proactive, try to get ahead. I guess the people you've heard what's like a vision board. I know that's maybe more of not a millennial kind of a thing, but maybe like what would that be? Generation Alpha or
or C
kind of thing. Yeah, Gen Z kind of thing. Have a financial vision board.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Let's do it. There's a reason why you're. I guess what my mom and dad would say back in Iowa, try to live within your means. Really, the new tagline is live below your means, because that gives you some margin to live with. Anything that I'm missing there, Jesus, that you want
Well,
to
you
add
know
on
what?
that?
I would like just to go to one of the comments. Brian says, suggest looking into monthly subscriptions.
Oh, yeah.
And that is so right. Because, sometimes we do have I don't know, what streaming services are over there, like 10, 15 different streaming services.
Yes.
And you may not even using that, but you are paying for it.
Yeah.
So definitely, Brian, yes, you are so right. Looking into the monthly subscription, and you know what? Going back to the same point, when you have this budget, you can see your monthly expenses, and you can see where
Yes.
the money is going, and see
Yes.
like, okay, this makes no sense, right?
Right.
But
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Finish
no, no,
your
no,
thought.
no. Go ahead, go ahead.
No, like I love the one thing that people fear on the budget is the parameters, is because they think it's going to be constrictive. I try to get people to see it through the lens of it can be freeing. It can be liberating to know, okay, I make X. This is what I actually need to live by, survive in a month, paying bills, paying mortgage or rent, cell phone utilities, etc. And knowing that, okay, if I'm going to give myself X amount of money each month to live off, like whatever money, blow money, whatever you want to call it, right? And then just controlling that. Like, I would tell you, I'll ask this question. We didn't plan this, but I'll ask the chat here. Everybody's listening or watching this or both. What do you think the biggest budget buster is? Like, what do you think breaks the budget the most each month? What line item do you think it is? And people can feel free to. Jesus, what do you think it would be? What do you think the biggest one is? You think it's Amazon or online subscription? What do you think it might be?
Honestly, I guess Amazon, because you can buy so easy from your house. Anything
Sure.
that you watch on the TV or that it's just cross your mind.
Yes.
Anything that happened, definitely. In my case, and I am guilty of it, Amazon will be one of it.
It's so convenient.
It is.
It's so convenient. This little company that was just selling books online now is in everybody's phone, and you can buy almost everything on there. Everything from a tiny home to a toothbrush, right? So, what I'm going. Brian says lunch is out. Natalia
Lunch is
says
out.
groceries. Brian also says like eating out, like Costco, Sam's Club. Lynn says Amazon.
Amazon, yeah.
What I have seen through the data and also personal experience, Jim says meals out, is it's food.
Yep.
And food can also be apart from Amazon too. You can get some items, but food tends to be like the biggest variable volatility thing, ebbs and flows. And most people don't set a food budget for the month, and they usually like go way over it. Or if they were to look at the last 6 months, it's like there's a lot of peaks and valleys to this thing, right? And so one way to gain control over your budget is to say, hey, what exactly do we need to spend on groceries when we get paid for the month? Like, what is that? What does that look like? Another thing too is on the budgeting thing that I was thinking of leading up to today's meeting or podcast is reward yourself. Like if you're doing a good job at paying down debt and you're hitting those milestones, take a moment to put the flag in the ground and be like, yes, I put the hard work in. Spend a quick moment to reward yourself, get that coffee, take your friend out to lunch. If it's a big milestone, maybe it's a getaway on a long weekend, right? Or something. I am guilty of that when we were eliminating debt early on in our marriage is that I wish I would have, instead of just running through the wall and ripping off the band-aid as quickly as possible, that I would have actually commemorated the hard work we were doing. But yeah, Jody asked, let's see, I'm gonna see here. So, oh, gas station impulse buys, totally, yeah. Cell phone bill. Sarah says restaurants. Jody asks, what are your thoughts on using a credit card that pays you for using it? That pays you for using it.
I guess that she may be referring to the cashback program.
Might be, yeah. So it's kind of this conundrum, right? Like you got to have credit technically if you like want a cell phone or a house or a car, unless you're paying for things in cash completely. But you got to be really careful. Probably don't need 10 credit cards, right? You got to be, so I got a really quick funny story. I was in college and I thought I had to buy a sweater at the mall. Went with friends, and what do they always ask you when you cash out? Would you like to sign up for the and save 15%? And I signed up like, yeah, I want to save 15%. Like, what does my 19-year-old self really know right at that point? It came back, I was declined. I'm like, what? I'm declined. There I am, a sophomore in college. And then a couple years later, we're in that same store. I was buying a pair of pants. I'm like, I'm surely my credit's better now, right? Nope, came back declined. And I'm thinking, like, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, what is going on with my credit? And it wasn't until I got to the financial industry where somebody told me, like, you should check your credit out. Annualcreditreport.com. That's where you can check your all through three bureaus like Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Again, that's annualcreditreport.com. And I checked it out, and it's free. You can check each bureau. Guess what happened, Jesus? I already had a credit card from that like retail clothing store. So there's no way they were going to give me a second one. And I completely forgot that I had a credit card from that
You
store.
have so many.
Yep. Idiot me, had been there like, I don't know,
Yep.
12 months earlier from the first time. But yeah, check out your credit report. That should be a goal for everybody in 2025.
Yeah, and I actually will say, I will say like two golden rules. The first one is try to not to exceed 30% of the maximum credit limit, because that's going to help you with your credit score, as well as try to pay them off. When you use it like every month to pay it off. When you're using a credit card, definitely yes, you can get some points, miles, cashback. But the good thing here is to, as he said, to not to exceed the 30%. Let's say that your credit limit is 10,000. Try to not to exceed 3,000 out of it.
Sure.
So then your use is less than 30%, as well as to pay it off every month. So you don't pay interest. When you carry on some debt on your credit card, then the cashback points, miles, whatever they can offer you, it doesn't worth it whatsoever. So
Yeah,
the interest can be like eating you alive. So I would say, Jody, it's a good way to pay off for your things. It's getting cashback points, mile. It's a good reward, yes, but just keep, as Mario said, keep in control how many credit cards you have, and try to not to affect your credit score.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's sound wisdom right there. Yeah, don't get in over your skis, right? Kind of a thing, and because it's easy to do, it can be a slippery slope. Because I'm working with clients, they go through medical stuff. There's big bills, and it can totally sideline. But maybe as much as we want everybody to save for retirement, sometimes you have to reduce retirement for a while to kind of get through that little bit of a valley financially. What's going on in the household? Because you got to survive. You got to have the four walls to your house, right? And so you got to pay for utilities, got to pay for food, got to pay for the mortgage or the rent, for example, gas in the car. That keeps everything going, right? I wouldn't include the Cancun trip in the four walls necessarily, although Cancun sounded pretty good right now.
It sounds really good.
I'm hoping my wife's from Mexico. We'd love to see her family at least once a year. So if we can get to Puebla, Mexico at least once a year, I am really excited. Of course, it's in December, but who cares? It's beautiful.
Yep.
Food's great. People are great. Love my in-laws. A couple of things I failed to mention on the financial pitfalls, but also can loop in back into your goals for the year is if you're picking your own investments, make sure you are rebalancing.
Yep.
So a good rebalancing frequency, it's available through your retirement plan, like a 401k, 403b, 457. Make sure you have that. If you're picking your own funds, make sure rebalancing. It's basically, for those who don't know rebalancing, you're basically selling high to buy low. They're great inverses of each other, where you're selling low to buy. Sorry. You're buying low to sell high. Rebalancing is taking the froth and you're selling that off to buying cheap in the other investments. So that's the quick backhand version of the envelope summary of what that is. But at the very least, put like a semi-annual on it as well on it. You could set that on through maybe an app or a qualified retirement participant plan. Another thing too is just being diversified, because probably, Jesus, you probably see this in a lot of people's accounts. Maybe they're under diversified or they're too diversified, right?
Yep. Yes. And actually, I mean, as you said, Mario, if you are selecting your own funds, it's important for you to know like how to have your account diversified. Because having your account diversified will not prevent you from any, I would say, like a risk on the market. Because at the end of the day, every single investment will have some risk. But when you do have your account diversified, basically you are spreading out the risk of being invested on it. So as you said, when the account is not well diversified, you are taking too much risk. But the opposite, when it's too much diversified, it's like you may not taking advantage of your investments because you do have like a very small investment on each one when you do have like over diversified. So definitely yes. Just please be aware of it and be conscious of how your account is diversified. Something that I like when it comes to particularly to retirement funds or to retirement yeah, like 401k 457 is the mutual funds. And when you actually have your account, your own personal account, mutual funds, I like them because they are diversified by themselves. Like it's not like you are taking full risk, it's diversified by themselves. So when you
Yes.
have your mutual fund diversified, it's a pretty well diversified account.
This is a great point. Yeah. So by definition, a mutual fund is going to have probably hundreds of companies in it, or even if it's S&P 500,
Right, by
which
companies,
is
yeah.
top 500 largest companies in the U.S., or large cap growth, large cap value if it's separated out. Your small mid, maybe it's following something like the Russell 2000 or something like that. If you're only in like the S&P, you're missing out on other market growth, because really typically the S&P only covers about 80% of the US market cap, where to get that small and mid, you got to incorporate into it. The other thing I'm thinking of too is the financial pitfall is people often, if they're picking their own funds, if they're not like in a target date fund, is they don't reduce risk over time.
Correct.
And so a 65-year-old should not be invested like a 20-year-old and vice versa. And so doesn't mean a 65-year-old can have small, mid, or international, but it's not going to be the same weighted percentages as somebody who has like a 40-year time horizon. Um, I'm looking here in the chat. Brian is concerned about reportable earnings with rebalancing. That's interesting. So in your qualified plans, like a 401k we were talking about earlier, you remember that your dividends are already reinvested. And sometimes on the participant website through your record keeper, you can see that. You can actually see that activity. The S&P is kind of weighted in its sense as far as of who gets in. So it's kind of like free flowing in that sense. So I'm not sure if I'm like overly concerned about the reportable earnings with rebalancing. Just know that if you have like a basic example, if you want 30% of your portfolio to be S&P exposure, whether actively managed or passively managed, and it grows to say 35%, then it gets it back to 30.
Yep.
Right. And so, and keeping with that, I know in our huddle calls leading up to this, we were always talking about like, hey, the market's down like north of 20% the past 2 years. What do you think it's going to get? So for our next question, I'm going to prompt Kelly, who's working hard here behind the scenes. For those, big thing, shout out to Kelly for helping to put this all together. The question is, what do you think? Actually, I'm going to make sure I word this correctly. So I'm going to go down to my show notes here. Based on current market conditions and historical trends, what percentage return do you anticipate for the market this year? So that is the question. And A, 5%, B, 10%, C, 15%, D, 20%. We didn't put a negative return in there. We didn't think, we were trying to be very optimistic on it. But again, the last 2 years, we're talking north of 20%. Remember, for those people who only want to be concentrated in one sector, like the S&P, it was down. It was the big loser that year in 2022, if you remember that. And that just happened just a few short years ago.
Yep.
So get your answers in. What do you think the market's going to return? What do you think, Jesus? What's your market outlook? What do you?
So honestly, I'm trying to be optimistic, but a little bit conservative. From my perspective, I would say some point in between 5 and 10, some in between A and B. I'm not seeing, and hopefully I'm wrong, right? But I'm not seeing a 2023, 2024 that were really good years for the market.
Sure.
For this year, I mean, since everything is so volatile at this moment, I would say more conservative, something in between 5 to 10. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
This is a really good question. I'm a forever optimist. I'm a forever optimist, and so, but I got to keep myself in check. So the since 1901, there's been six times where the market's dropped between 30 and 60%, and on average, it takes we're talking several months to get back to where you were, right? But most bear markets tend to resolve themselves within 9 months. I'll
Yes.
give you another example. So March of 2020, when the pandemic was taking hold
Mhm.
economically in the U.S. and everything was shutting down, basically, like everybody was just staying home, don't go to work. It was taking hold of the whole planet, right? And so the market dropped 30% in March of 2020.
Mhm.
Who would have known that the S&P from where it started was up going to be up 20% at the
Mhm.
close of 2020? So there's a lot of unforeseen things.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to day trade your 401k account. You don't want to do that. I'd be really happy if it got 20% again. But if I keep my optimism in check, Jesus, I'm probably thinking I'd be happy with 10. So
Well, yeah,
I'd probably
definitely.
lock my answer in at B, probably at 10.
And you know what? Actually, I see Lynn, Stephanie, Joy, Natalie, all of them at 5%. Brian
Yeah,
is a little bit more optimistic. He goes from between 10 to 15, as well, Lynn. So hopefully they are right, right?
absolutely. And I'm also want to get to these questions. I see here, do you think investments, wait, the question is, do you think better of investments on target date funds? Maybe the question is a target date fund appropriate? I
Hmm.
would say for a lot of people who just want the guesswork taken out, yes, target date funds take a lot of that guess. They're the autopilot, the cruise control. And if you don't want to work with a financial professional to get a personalized portfolio and you don't want to take on the responsibility of picking the investments, reducing risk, rebalancing, reduction of risk over time, then yeah, I say a target date fund tends to be a decent fit. Tends to be a decent fit. But I'm also a little bit biased as a wealth manager. I always tell my clients, targeting funds are great, but you're in the cart with everybody else. If you're born in 81, then you're going to be on the same roller coaster cart to 2045 as everybody else because
Yep.
it only takes into consideration basically your age
Yep.
from your date of birth. But a personalized portfolio takes into consideration more data points. So your risk tolerance, your ability to endure huge volatility. Maybe you don't like enduring a lot of volatility. And so that personalization, as far as instead of being, and the other thing, I guess, well, I'm going to throw in one more thing too. Like any of the big names, like Vanguard, Fidelity, whatever you want to call them, everybody has their own. Every investment company has their own target date fund, and they only use their target dates. They only use their investments inside the portfolio. In retail accounts, or if you're picking your portfolio, you can be agnostic and pick best in class. So you can go and like, okay, what's the best actively managed large cap fund and incorporate it? What's the best small cap fund I can, then as opposed to being restricted just to one investment company.
Yeah.
So good.
And also, there's a question Jody asked. In your opinion, what is the magic number to have save to retire at 65 with a life expectancy of 88?
Ooh, ooh, it's a good question. It's a good
That's
question,
a
Jody.
good question.
You got
What
any
are your
initial
thoughts,
thoughts on
Mario?
that? You got anything on that? What do you think?
So, I mean, I know that is such a common place that says like, when the answer is like it depends on every single one of us, but it is actually it does depend for every single one of us, and I would say that the main or the first question to answer that one will say like how do you picture yourself do or what do you see yourself doing during retirement? If it's more like a retirement at your house, just taking some rest and spending time with family and friends, definitely will be less money needed. If your plan is be traveling around the world and
Yeah.
being on a cruise every 2 months, right? So I would say, unfortunately, there is no magic number unless that Mario, please correct me if you know a magic number. Um, But the first question to ask yourself is, how do you see yourself, or what do you see yourself doing during retirement?
That's a great point because everybody's retirement's different, right? It's so personalized. There's not a one size fits all. I will say there's some leading indicators for everybody in general to have a prosperous retirement. One, if they're going into retirement and they have their debt under control, maybe they already have their house paid for. How good is their health? Have they already been budgeting for several years? So when they get into retirement, budgeting is not a new thing, right? Because if you're having to learn a new thing at 65 and you got this nest egg, it'd be probably pretty scary. Like, okay, how fast am I going to draw this down? How much am I going to need? Am I going to outlive my nest egg? If you already hadn't been budgeting. On the wealth management side, what we use software. We put in the parameters and data variables, and we say, okay, how long is this money going to last based on what this person needs? And we put that up against inflation. We put that up against ticket items, like big ticket items. We put that up against if they have any debt, Social Security, all their income to see how long that nest egg is going to last. But the more control someone, I sit down with them, if they have their debt under control, they're going to have their house paid off or nearly paid off. And they've, like to Jesus's point, they've thought about what do they want to do in retirement. Then they can really map out what that. And so, like for example, on that 23-year retirement that she was mapping out, like probably in the first years, it's going to be more financially tied to what she wants to do because maybe in the last year she's not doing as much. Meaning, like my 90-year-old grandma, I love her so much, but she's probably not going to get on a plane anytime soon. Unless we're driving her somewhere, she's not going to be leaving her city.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, very interesting. So let's shift gears here. Actually, let me see if I missed anything. Oh, Jamie asked, what do you think about a high yield savings account? Is there something else you would recommend? Ooh, well, so you can go on to websites that aggregate like the best high yield savings you can get because money markets are still around 4% right now. So and you can get, and it's not it's still tied to like a bank or a credit union. Those are great places to put an emergency fund because you can get they're easy access to it. It's liquid. I love those. And so if you're only getting like 0.5% where you're putting your money right now, you could be doing way better. That's the other silver lining of interest rates that are kind of high still. Money markets and high yields they're paying really well. So getting 4% on 10,000, that's going to add up, or whatever it is you have in savings. Is there something else I'd recommend? I'd be a little bit wary of putting money into CDs, certificates of deposit. I've had a lot of conversations with my clients regards to, should I take advantage of this rate? Okay, are we okay with tying up our money for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? Is there something else better? Can we get something comparable just on the money market side? Typically you can, and maybe you want that liquidity because again, it depends how big your emergency fund is. Let's see here. You see anything else there in the chat there, Jesus, you want to pull from?
Let me see. Well, I guess that we will go back to the budgeting, right? Because Brandy asked about what would be what was it, Brandy? Yes, Brandy asked a good recommendation for a budgeting app to use.
Oh,
But I don't know if we are going back to the budgeting later on the conversation, or you want to answer that.
yeah, that's not a bad. I mean, yeah, thank you for participating. And I'm kind of old school. As much as apps are good, I like writing it out because then it kind of seeps into my psyche. And then I like my handwriting. Boom, I like to put it somewhere. Because my wife and I, we're gonna get hungry, we're gonna get thirsty. The refrigerator is our connection point for our budget because we all remember like, oh, my 4-year-old needs new shoes. Oh, my 3-year-old needs a haircut. These are things I'm completely oblivious to, but she remembers, and thankfully I have her in my life. She's like, hey, by the way, next budget, we need to do this. And so, and there's probably some decent ones. I know early on when I moved to Austin in 2010, I loved Mint because it showed me getting out of debt and showed my net worth getting better, going from red to black over time. So I love that visual, right? I heard good things about Rocket Mortgage. If it's just you, find an app that works suitable for you, but make sure that app doesn't get lost on your phone. Like we all have like tons of apps. Like how often are you going to be going into it, right? Let's just be honest with yourself. Yeah. But I'm kind of old school. I like writing it out. How about you? You need. What do you feel? What's your go-to? Like if you're going to be budgeting, are you more of an app? Or you like to write it out?
I I'm actually kind of like a paranoid, to be honest with you, and I actually use both. So I do have. I like to use Nerd Wallet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, It is like pretty comprehensive, and it gives you like the monthly budget, but it gives you that for the month, like from the 1st to the 30th or 31st or 28th, depending on the month. In my case, my credit card, which I use to pay for almost everything and pay it off at the end of the month, the closing date, if I'm not wrong, is the 25th, something like that. So it
Mhm.
doesn't go like the whole month. That's why I like to put it on my own terms. Like I do have my spreadsheet, like literally like an Excel document, and I put all the expenses, and I do have my budgeting, and I do that based on the cycle of my credit card. And I do like to have also the money the nerd wallet, just to see if
Sure.
anything that I am missing by any chance. So I'm using both. As I said, I'm a little bit paranoid of it.
It's okay to be paranoid, really. I am more of the financial vein kind of person thinking, and my wife's more carefree. We try to balance each other out.
Yeah.
And she's come a long way, and I think we've kind of met in the middle, our balance. I will say, like, this kind of goes to Jody's questions too, basically, like how much money you have in retirement, and things to think about. Also, there might be some times where you have to think about, like, if you need more money in retirement, just downsizing life. For
Yep.
example, you might need to go from a two-story home to a one-story home, right? Uh, and there might need to be some they might need to delay retirement by a year. That could be a thing, right? There's also a question here in the chat. I think Jody was asking about like Medicare and costs. No, it was Debbie. Debbie asked, "I want to retire before I'm eligible for Medicare. What are your thoughts on how to manage medical insurance costs before you're eligible for Medicare?" So yeah, obviously you have the exchange, right? Healthcare.gov, where they have the bronze, silver, and gold plans. That's something to consider to looking at. Working longer through your employer to get that subsidized premium on your major medical insurance. That might be a possibility. Depending what your time horizon is. I know, Jesus, you and I have talked about this. If it's applicable, if it's appropriate, if it's a decent fit for your health, for your family, possibly considering a high deductible health plan, which lowers the premium and gives the opportunity to stock away more money into an HSA. And it's been a little bit different. I know HSA has been around for obviously quite a while now, several years. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jesus?
Yeah, no, definitely taking advantage of the HSA. HSA can help you out to pay for premiums. So definitely that would be a good idea if you are, as Mario said, when it comes to how long you have until you actually retiring. Otherwise, you know what? And I know that this may not be the answer that you are looking for, but when I do meet with my participants or my clients, and they ask me this question, I always suggest like maybe you may think about like a part-time job. Maybe I don't know, like in a library or something with this very low stress, just to help you out to pay for your medical insurance. If
Yeah,
that's something, think of it.
it is kind of interesting that the traditional sense of retirement is to get away from work, but the thing that might bring you joy and connecting to people could give you fulfillment, and that could be work in retirement, something that's completely different, maybe from the full time, but that gets you out of the house. It's something you've always wanted to learn to do, or it's a part of it's an interest or a passion or a hobby that you can just keep getting a paycheck for, which is wonderful. I guess the new generation calls them side hustles, right?
Uh-huh.
Something to that effect. Before I forget about it, on the HSA, before we were talking about just a moment ago, for those people who maybe don't know what that is, it's that triple tax benefit. So it's a high deductible health plan. That's not a PPO. It's not an HMO. And essentially, high deductible health plan gives you the ability to have a lower premium, but then you're paying out of pocket until you meet a deductible, either single or if your family's on, there's a family deductible. And then it does give you the opportunity to be able to put away money each paycheck. And typically the employer would put something away for the employee per year. Either they put it away per month or et cetera, but there's a total amount you can get that can help you to get to that deductible. Because once you get to the deductible amount, then there's usually like an 80-20 that kicks in or something to that effect, right?
Yep.
But the deductible can be quite high. We're talking thousands of dollars, which goes back to what Jesus and I were talking about earlier. Like, okay, what's the emergency fund? Is it really manageable? The Yeah, but the triple tax benefit, I should probably break that down too. So your contribution comes off your gross paycheck, so it lowers your income, and then it's the investment. It can actually, when you get to $2,000, usually you can invest it, so it can grow tax deferred, and then you can pull it out tax free. and there's a qualified medical list that as long as whatever you pull it out for and you keep the receipt, the invoice, it's a tax-free withdrawal. And that's everything from like over-the-counter medicine to like crutches, a wheelchair, anything that I needed last year when I had pneumonia. And I couldn't, if Jesus would have knocked on my door, I was basically living on my couch for like 10 days. I could not get off of it. It took all my strength just to go to the restroom. But yeah, this year, we should talk about limits this year. So an HSA for someone who it's only on them. So it's a single high deductible health plan. It's $4,300 you can put into an HSA for 2025. If your family is on it, so then you have a higher limit of contribution. That's $8,550. And these limits do not include any employer dollars. It's just your money you can put in. And then also we like to say it's forever money. It's forever money because you're never going to be required from the U.S. government to be able to pull money out of it. So there's no RMD on it. There's no required minimum distribution. That could be some estate planning interest as well, long term.
And actually, you just read my mind, Mario, because I wanted to add that, or I would like to make the difference between the HSA and the FSA.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes we may be confusing with what's the difference in between them. And the way I like to put it, which is easier for me, is to put it like, okay, FSA is use it or lose it for the year. So the amount that you put it on your FSA, most of the time, not to say all the time, is use it or lose it throughout the year. If you don't use it throughout the year, then it's lost. Then it just reset the next year. HSA, it has I would say the beauty or the novel, if you want to, that money is yours forever. You take that with you, and if you change your employer and your new employer is offering you a high deductible insurance, you can actually roll over and consolidate. So that money is yours, and that will not change. Well, at least it's around not right now.
That's a really good point you're making. There's a difference between the FSA and the HSA because I think for a lot of people they're kind of more familiar with the FSA and have kind of warmed up to maybe entertaining a high deductible health plan that has a health savings account, the HSA, as an option. And again, at the end of the day, you got to get what's best for your family, right, or for you, for health wise. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's bring us to our last question. What qualities or traits do you consider most important when selecting a financial advisor? So thank you, Kelly, for bringing that up. We have A, demonstrates the ability to generate strong returns on investment. B, provides a judgment-free approach. C, offers comprehensive financial services. D, delivers valuable market insights and analysis. What do you think, Jesus? What do you look for most when you're talking to somebody?
So I would like actually to add another answer because I have seen that from my clients.
Sure,
I have seen that from my clients, and sometimes people don't look at a lot like when it comes to returns or like I don't know, like the old financial services, the comprehensive financial services, but also when they can feel connected, like when your financial advisor feels you like they are treating you like a human being and not just as a number,
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
super important for you to feel comfortable with your financial advisor. And as I would say the answer B says, not to have like or to have a adjustment-free approach when you can discuss all your finances and not to have any adjustment on that.
I could agree more. I like yours because humans treating other humans like humans, right? That's really what you want from somebody. When I always talk to like a potential client, like we're kind of like, is this going to be a good fit? Like it has to be a fit for both of us. There has to be a win-win. I never take out a client where they're like, if they don't think I'm going to bring on value, I'm like, then I'm not your financial wealth manager guy, right? Find somebody else, right? I want you to find the right fit because ultimately I see wealth managers as really like your financial coach. They're like, they're in your corner. They're cheering you on. They're trying to help you avoid financial pitfalls. They're trying to add win to your financial sale. And yeah, they tend to be good listeners. And I think back to my first financial advisor, Jesus, when I was back in college, when my journalism law professor, bless her, I love her so much. I hope she's still with us. I should reach out and see if she's on some type of social media. She asked in a big lecture hall, like 200 people, hey, who's working and also going to school? I'm like, I raise my hand. I'm looking around, maybe about 20% of the lecture hall. She goes, okay, everybody raised their hand. your mission this semester is to open up a Roth IRA. And that's the
Wow.
first time I ever
Yep.
heard of a Roth IRA. I had no idea what that was. And then I did that because like whatever came out of her mouth was like gospel, it was gold. And so I did that. But my first advisor, he didn't explain what the mutual funds were, didn't ask what my goals were, didn't ask about my budget, didn't ask what I could contribute, didn't explain what the investment I was in. And looking back on it, I'm like, I doubt this
No,
person's probably still
definitely.
advising so, because they weren't very good.
Mario, I see a couple of
This is
one of them. Brooks says, "How about the one that actually teaches you what to do, not just tells you what to do?" Definitely.
yes, yeah. This is yeah. So you make a really good point, Brooke, because you want somebody that's because sometimes advisors can be very
Yep.
salesy,
Yep.
right? And what you really want is somebody like, hey, can I have a conversation with somebody? Can they maybe not give me? I don't need to know all the intimate details of what this investment is, but can you give me enough meat on the bone so I understand what I'm putting money in? Right? I mean, that's really what they're like. Explain me why you put these investments together for me, right? Or
Yeah.
how did you
Yeah.
come up with this? Talk to. And I had one client one time. We were going over 529s, and I was giving her notes and details, and she had a question. She goes, "Please break
Yeah.
it down like I'm five,
Yeah.
like I'm a 5 year old." And I replied, like, I love that so much. I love how candid she was because
Yep.
I love the challenge. Can I get it down to a fifth grade,
Yes.
a 5 year old level, right?
I said
So
here,
yeah,
Rahul. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. Says thoughts on contributing to a 401k beyond the employer contributions.
ooh.
Okay, let me
So
just
yeah,
when I
go
do
ahead,
have my
Jason.
meetings with my clients and with my participants on the 401k, they ask me like, what would be the best amount to contribute to my 401k? And my straight answer always is as much as you can. Like if you are on a financial position where you are out of debt, like when you do have your safety net and you can max out your 401k, by all means max it out. So definitely I would say, and please share your thoughts, Mario. I would say, Rahul,
Sure.
as much as you can, definitely the contribution from your employer is a bump, definitely, and it's something that helps you out to increase your savings on your 401k. uh, but at the end of the day, we're talking of your retirement, and you would like to have a nice retirement. So I would say definitely contributing on top of that. Definitely, that's a good idea. But I don't know, Mary. What's your idea?
This is it's kind of person specific, and so sometimes there's the school of thought that just contribute up to the employer match, and any dollar above that go to into a retail account, traditional or a trad they call it, or a Roth IRA or a brokerage account. I'm not like totally against that, but I also totally agree with your sentiment that through your employer retirement plan, that's a good first catch-all of your dollars because your employer sends the contribution to the record keeper, right? It doesn't have to come out of your checking account. And sometimes that's just easier
Yep.
mechanically for somebody. Ultimately, retirement accounts that are qualified 401k, 457, 403b, they end up probably going to an IRA anyway. And so that brings me to like another thought is if you have an old 401k account, you don't know what to do, email us at the help desk at mywellsense.com. That's help desk at mywellsense.com. It's on the ticker below. Maybe you need to have a conversation like, what do you do with the old 401k? Maybe you have a heavy contribution and you're like, maybe I want to split it between 401k and something else like an IRA or a brokerage account. The one advantage on the retail side is that you have the whole investment universe to pick from, which is kind of cool. And obviously, I work on the NFP side. We're very agnostic. We just want best in class in the funds. So I feel pretty confident with the team that I work on that we're constantly checking the funds. We're putting the best in there. We're putting them on notice or replacing them when they should be. So there's some thoughts around that. Let's see here. Gina add to that question, wondering how much should be in a 401k versus Roth IRA. Well, remember in your 401k, you can do both pre-tax and Roth. So this year's limit is 23,500 under age 50. If you're turning 50 or already 50, you can do 31,000 or $7,500 additional. There's even a thing where if you are 60 to 63, you can actually put a little bit more in because of the
Yep.
Secure Act 2.0 legislation. So there's some thoughts around that too that gets higher than the $7,500 limit. But yeah, I guess I kind of answered a little bit already, Gina, on that. But yeah, this has been great. I got to say, all the times I've done this is absolutely wonderful. All
Thank
the
you. Yep.
participation that we're getting. Yeah, I can't. So big applause and kudos sent out to everybody that attended. We look forward to getting you more content. You also feel free to use the help desk at mywealthsense.com as your opportunity to send us content ideas, things that you want to see in this monthly podcast that we're doing. Jennifer asked just now, I'm getting this discourse. My friend puts in 6% less than I do, and we have our both in the same account, but hers is $20,000 more than mine. How is that? I do have a Roth and she has a 401k. It could have been just
Yeah.
when the money was invested. You got to remember that there's just when the money is invested, there's going to be certain jumps in the market each year. So I would go back to when money was invested. You could be in the exact same thing, but if hers was in the market a little bit longer, that's
Mhm.
all it could take sometimes to have a little bit more. Also, the contribution level. So if you don't have the same contribution amount going in, if you're putting in more, if she's putting in more, that also could be a reason. Maybe she was buying, I don't know, on the dips, maybe more because she was buying more investment share. You got any thoughts
No,
on that,
definitely.
Jesus?
So, and
Anything?
also, it may be also the income. I don't know if they do have the exact same income, because maybe even though the percentage may be lower, the
True.
actual amount may be higher if the income is higher. So there are
Yeah.
like different. There may be different answers to that question, depending. You know what? Before we actually leave, Jennifer asked a good question. I mean, I'm sorry, no, it was Mary. It says, when do you think it's best to start working with a financial advisor, trying to decide if I should be paying for the service or just keep going by ourselves until we are making a certain amount of
Hmm.
money? Any thoughts?
Ooh, Mary asked a very astute question there. So here's what a financial advisor, wealth manager can offer. They can provide an objective look at what you're invested in. To our points earlier that Jesus and I were making, are you under diversified? Are you diversified too much? Is a targeted fund not really a good fit for you? Maybe we should have more in equities as opposed to where the targeted fund puts you. Those are some initial thoughts that I have. Also, maybe you need, depending where your time horizon is, how close you are to retirement, maybe you need someone to help you with, okay, we think we're going to have X amount for a nest egg, running some scenarios on how long that nest egg is going to last, right? So those are more detailed questions, like wealth managers help out with. Okay, we can pick any 529 in the United States. Give me the best three, right? And
Yes.
why do you pick them? Fees, investments, service. So those are all things, both investment and ancillary, that are very important to kind of maybe
Yeah, and you know
merit
what? Actually,
whether or not
Steve
you're
does have this joke that he says, like, let's say that you are trying to get in shape and you are wondering, like, if you want to hire or to pay for a trainer, and you wait until you actually get
I love it.
in shape before you actually get the trainer. It's like the idea is for you to get their insight, as you said, to help you out to have either in this case better investment or to see if you are properly invested, right?
Yes. I just thought of something too. I was on a podcast. I never heard it quite put this way. The language here is because we near the end of today's podcast is you don't know what your blind spots are, but a
Okay.
financial advisor can help you shine the light on those blind spots. And kind of what this maybe what triggered it. Jesus said, like, hey, it's nice to know what
Mhm.
I'm doing wrong so I can kind of get back more on track. And getting that objective analysis can be very, very helpful. Like, oh, I didn't know I should have twice as much small mid cap, or I didn't have any small mid cap at all, or talking about international and emerging market, or oh, I didn't see this hole in my budget. Thank you for that. How can I do to remedy it? So yeah, blind spots is a big thing. You got any final thoughts before we close today's
No,
Live Well Sense
Mario,
podcast here?
other than thank you, thank everybody for being here today and being so proactive. I love all your questions. On the, I will say, on your screen, you are seeing our email. Feel free to email us. Our email is helpdesk@mywealthsense.com. Feel free to email us if you have any questions, or if I apologize if we didn't see your question and we didn't catch that. Feel free to send us your question and we are more than happy to help you out. I don't know, Mario, any final thoughts on that?
I love today's. I think we covered a lot of ground. We appreciate your time as always to the audience for tuning in, and we want to make sure this content's helpful and we're adding wind to your financial cell and making you feel empowered as you kind of work through the months of 2025. So with that, I think that's a wrap. Thank you, Jesus. I
Thank
look forward to
you.
seeing
Have a
you
great day.
soon. Thank you,
Bye
Kelly.
bye.
Everybody take care.